All right, welcome back to Mondraker TV. We have returned to the amazing Rofco. I never thought we'd get back here again. So this is going to be our third collaboration with Golf. Now, if you haven't seen the other two, please do hang on for the end of the video because they're going to be linked in there. In the meantime, I'm going to get parked up and I'll see you inside. You wait till you see this. You're not going to believe what we've got in there this time. Every single one of these incredible cars behind me has a fascinating story of how it came to be in the collection, the iconic drivers that raced them, and of course, the particular races that these have been chosen from. And just like these cars, the one that we have chosen for this special collaboration has its own fascinating story. This is the Porsche Kramer K8, one of just 4 ever built. Golf and its rich history in motorsport dates back to 1967 when a Ford GT40 was first raced at Daytona wearing the Golf branding. Now this Mark I GT40 was raced by Dick Thompson and Jackie Ickx, but it didn't look like this. It had the classic Golf brand colours, which were a darker blue and orange. So the GT40 in those classic colours did look really good, but ultimately it was the only time it was going to be seen because it was decided that something brighter and racier was needed than those iconic but more brand colours compared to what we see here. Now, Golf had recently acquired the Wilshire Oil Company that actually used a bright powder blue, very much like this. So this really is a story of where this came from, the powder blue and the marigold orange that you know so well from Golf's history in motorsport. As you can see by just this incredible array of cars, I was going to say behind me, but everywhere in this room, the Golf colours are very present. And you could be forgiven for thinking that they're actually quite similar, but they're very, very different. I mean, look at the striking grille on the front of that AMG, and then look at the neon orange on the long tail over there. Each and every car, the more you look at it, the more that you realise it has different work put into those graphics and the livery on them. And Golf cars, let's face it, every car that's been a Golf car has screamed for attention. Well, that was until the Golf Mirage team was actually sold and there was a bit of an absence from international racing. And after an absence of racing for nearly 20 years, this is what they returned with. So this is the Porsche Kramer K8, open-topped, it's just a wild looking car. And dare I say it, with that more brand sensitive colorway to that, the darker blue and the orange and the silver, somehow this just has much more impact. I love that low pinstripe that really extends the look of the wheelbase, the contours here with the air ducts. It's just phenomenal. And you picture this, so not only did they return after 20 years of not racing on the international scene, so firstly the Golf legend comes back with the original colours from the first time round. So they're celebrating the return of a legend as a legend does his last ever Le Mans 24-hour. And that legend, named right there, is Derek Bell, who raced with Jürgen Lassig and fellow countryman Robin Donovan. Now at that Le Mans in 1994, they managed 6th place. Now I can feel some of you might be thinking, 6th place, that's not really a first place, is it? But Le Mans 24-hour, this is a very particular event. Even completing it is a major achievement. So to come back from 20 years without racing and to come back with this car and get a 6th place with all the problems they had, including stuck throttles and every other thing that you're going to get with the open cab there, the fatigue on the driver from the buffeting and the weather and stuff, it's a phenomenal result. I mean, look at the thing. So this is when the Kramer brothers got to work to build this car, and it all started really with the CK6, which was a closed top design, a little bit too heavy. So they took the top off that, turned it into the CK7, uprated the engine and stuff like that. And really they realised that the format was going to be going for the Spider type open top design. We've seen this come across from Inter-Series International Racing and of course Can-Am in America. Now the real similarities with all of these and where this car needed to go for the LMP class was the fact it needed to house two people, so driver and a passenger. You saw this in the Can-Ams and the Inter-Series, and it needed to have bodywork that covered the wheels. So essentially a lot of cars that had been in the Can-Am series would have been near enough Formula One cars, but with bodywork to meet the criteria. And this really was where they were trying to go with this, the CK6 that evolved into this absolute beast. Now housed in the back, in fact, let's go around there and I'll show you what's housed in the back. And to fit into the race class, this is the engine they used. It's a 3.2 litre flat 6 engine. Now this kicked out 530 brake horsepower. It's got 2 turbos in it, and of course it's the flat 6 design. So what that basically means is the pistons and the cylinders fire in an inline motion as opposed to firing downwards like you would with the engines mounted in a different position with a V or a W profile to those pistons and cylinders. What this really means in terms of the engine though is there's far less loss of kinetic energy, higher RPMs, higher top speed given the displacement there. So that is how they did it, and it was actually one of the last Porsches to use this engine. And then of course is the bodywork on here. So there's no use having all that power if you can't get it on the ground. And the body, I guess you could compare it to fairing really. It's there to create downforce and obviously to keep the car stuck down. And this is like a Kevlar reinforced carbon design. I mean, it really doesn't weigh much considering the size of this. The chassis is aluminium with a honeycomb design. And given how light the vehicle is, it's under 1,000 K, I think it's like 970 kilos or something. It's, you know, it's a really robust thing. But you know, there's something about this. I haven't been able to sort of put my finger on it, but when I found out we were going to be filming with this car, I didn't think it was going to have anywhere near the impact compared to what that 917K did, which is still just one of the most incredible cars of all time. And or the GT40 that we filmed last time. But strangely, I think this might have more impact for me, just looking at the car, knowing what this car can do and how many generations it took to get to it, let alone the fact there's only the 4 of them. Then it carries those original brand colours just so well. I think it looks incredible. It looks more precise, it looks more refined, it looks more modern. And you know, I think that and all the combination of these things, I think that makes the pairing with the bike that bit better. This is the Crafty Carbon. It's our top of the range, full carbon, full power eMTB. And it's actually the best handling and responding bike we have made across the board, any category, any year. Now this bike, just with our other collaborations that we've done with Golf in the past, numbers will be extremely limited. So if you're interested, get onto our website now to find out a bit more about that. There'll be a link underneath this video. Now, each and every one of these bikes is meticulously hand painted by our crew at the Blue Lab in Spain. And just to give you an example of that, they won't be painting a batch of front triangles, a batch of forks, a batch of rear triangles. One painter will paint an entire bike. And the reasoning for that is how that painter emotionally feels, or perhaps if they're tired one day or the next, will be different to the next one. So the way that they paint is different. It's to completely ensure the quality between them is absolute. And just looking at the quality, if I get in a bit closer here, that pinstriping that divides between the silver and that rich blue from the Golf brandy, it's really, really classy when you see this up close. And there's a slight, like a sparkly fleck in there as well. It's just astonishing in the flesh. And I think it's a really, really fitting tribute to that incredible car sat next door. But let's talk a little bit more about the frame detailing on here. So this model is our Crafty Carbon. That means it is full carbon. So all of the models in the Crafty range have the carbon front end, but some of them have an alloy rocker and an alloy rear. This one is full carbon. So not only is it lighter, but the suspension works better because the sprung to unsprung mass ratio changes, so it performs better and it's lighter, and let's face it, it just looks really, really trick. Now, the suspension design on here has been specifically optimized around the motor, which we'll talk about in a little while. So when we're talking about optimization, firstly, let's talk about the anti-squat on here, because this is something you can draw parallels between bikes and cars here. So anti-squat is a phenomenon, essentially a part of the suspension kinematics to fight weight transfer. So on a car, you're going to get weight transfer under braking and under acceleration. Of course, you're going to get those on bikes as well, but there's a third factor, what the chain does in terms of the suspension performance. So when you pedal some suspension bikes, the suspension can compress or extend. Neither of those are desirable traits. So anti-squat is something that's built into our suspension design. Now you've got 123% anti-squat at the sag point on this. Now what we found is this is the optimum amount, and it's actually less than previous models, because not only does it give you enough support to just carry on pedaling up and over anything in your way, there's plenty of traction available to you there by lowering that amount to make sure it stays supple. And then of course there's anti-rise, which is almost the opposite. This has the effect of braking on a suspension. Now sometimes the braking can extend the suspension, sometimes it can compress them, and they can be used to effect in different ways. But the optimum for this bike is a very neutral state. So it has between 100 and 104% anti-rise throughout the travel. It's a very neutral, very realistic bike on any terrain. You know what this bike is going to do at any time. And in terms of suspension progression, it's 24% on here. So the bike was designed around being able to use coil shocks, which as you can see on here, and of course air shocks, which we spec on many of our off the peg. Now this one's running the Öhlins TTX coil shock on here. Incredible feeling shock, really, really good damping, and that pairs up really well with the RXF 38 fork on the front there. Of course, you've got high and low speed compression available to you, you've got rebound available to you, and in addition to the support that you can have from the air spring, you can adjust the ramp control. That essentially means you're in control of how linear or how progressive you want that to feel compared to where you're riding and how you like things to be. Now the frame geometry as well is something very special to us on this bike. As standard, you've got a 64.5 degree head angle. You can take this down to 64.1. That also changes the bottom bracket height very slightly there. So what we found over the years on our forward geometry bikes is proportional sizing is really beneficial to taller riders on certain types of bike. On the size large and the size extra large on the Crafty, you get a 465mm chainstay. But on the medium large, the medium and the small, you get 455mm. We've tried both lengths of chainstay on all size bikes, and universally across the board, this is what all of our testers and what all the R&D riders came to in the end. It's the optimum balance of trying to remain as central on the bike, giving both front wheel balance and traction, but traction to the rear as well. As I mentioned before, the suspension on these bikes has been designed around the latest Generation 5 versions of the Bosch CX and the CXR motor. On this one, of course, we have the CXR. So the telltale signs are slightly different graphics on the outside and the grey magnesium housing on here. So this is slightly lighter. It also has a titanium spindle and ceramic bearing, so it's more efficient and it's lighter. This new motor with the latest software update kicks out 100 Nm of torque and 750 watts of peak power. There is 400% of support on there, and as previously, you get all the choice of how you set things up on the app itself. So on the Flow app, you can change every element of the dynamic ride qualities to suit you. The major differences are the system controller from the top tube is now gone and replaced with this beautiful full color TFT display. This tells you everything you want, and it's fully customizable as well, and it works with the wireless remote on the bars. Now, something especially good about this new system isn't so much about the power, it's about the power delivery. This is what Bosch does so well. So on the new eMTB Plus setting, you get 2 meters of overrun, but there's more to it than that. You had 2 meters of overrun on the previous race motor. but that was a wild, aggressive beast that was excellent but needed taming. This is far more manageable in how that you can put that power down to the ground. Think of it like traction control. So you have an incredibly soft touch to accessing that power. Put yourself in a picture of riding on, I don't know, like wet roots or wet rock. On the previous motor, if you didn't know how to sort of manage that power, you could wheel spin so easily. With this one, you can have the softest touch. Imagine walking on ice. The softest touch on the pedals, and you will get the same response back to you from the motor. It's phenomenal. Powering the system is an 800 watt-hour removable battery here, housed in the down tube. But should you want to, if you wanted to make the bike lighter weight, you could also install the 600 watt-hour battery. And it's the exact same length, thanks to the way that Bosch is now working. Let's get up to the cockpit. Okay, and up to the cockpit of the bike here. So we've got a full width 800mm on-off S9 carbon bar and stem combination here. But more importantly, you've probably noticed the brakes on here. So these have been chosen specifically, not only to blend in with the wheels, as you can see here on that beautiful K8, but also to represent a significant thing in motorsport, which is braking power. Now, there's plenty of amazing brakes available on the mountain bike market, but these small batch or small production brakes here, made by Trick Stuff, are called Maxima. Now, these have the highest amount of power available with the least amount of lever action. So your hands work the least in terms of the power delivery that you get back. It's a very light lever action available to you for that maximum power. So the mechanical leverage that you have at the handlebars is exceptionally high as well compared to many other brakes on the market. And that 9mm piston bore pushes fluid down the Goodrich braided hoses, which is the same brand you'll be familiar with from many motorsport companies, all the way down to these exceptionally nice calipers that have got 16 and 17mm pistons on. Just beautiful state-of-the-art brakes that perfectly complement this pairing. And when it comes to the transmission on the bike, well, it had to be SRAM Eagle Access on here. This is just flawless. It's completely customizable. The rear derailleur, the XX down here, it's really tough. You can buy new components for this if you mash it up in a crash. Like I say, it's customizable, which will suit what you're doing with the Bosch system on here. You've got the Reverb Access dropper post, the latest generation with the Physique saddle on the top. You also have DT Swiss XMC 1200 carbon wheels on here. Top of the line wheels, really light, really responsive with Maxxis rubber on there. Now, I'm not sure which of the three collaborations we've done with Golf has produced the bike I like the best. I mean, they are all amazing, but I think as a pairing, I'm saying this is my favourite. I'd love to know what you think in the comments underneath. If you haven't seen the other two videos, they are going to be floating around. They're going to be floating around down there. I guess this is my cue to get out of here now. I think the Rothko guys want their car collection back. But I would love to know what you think of this video, what you think of this amazing new Crafty. And don't forget, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, how many available and stuff, that's going to be on our website with a link underneath there. I'm going to leave you now just to enjoy these. Yeah, enough of that from me. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. See you later.